I did it again. Okay, so you take this show on the road, and I always mess up on the tech, right? Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. So we are now, I know those of you back in the land of my birth are at night. It's the middle of the night. And I am clearly somewhere where the sun is able to shine on me, and I can use the actual sun as our light, which means that I've traveled. Well, I will leave it to you in the chat to figure out. I'm somewhere where the sun is shining, and it is entirely appropriate to our long-term theme of sailing this ark around the world and looking for images and meaning and pattern. And this one's going to be a good stream. This is now that you can actually hear me. So welcome to the Mosaic Ark. Well, now Kilt says she can't see me, but can you guys hear me? So you'll see I'm not on my Yeti mic, and I forgot to adjust the audio. Thank you for the advice, UATV chat. Otherwise, we'd have recorded this completely silently. That would be typical of me. Yes. So right now, I need to figure out whether or not I can make the video show up for Kilts. Can you see me now?
No, there is something there. It looks like a silk sheet.
You're just gonna have to look at, I don't know, your light. Don't look at me anyway.
I'm gonna keep it blind.
Mm-hmm. Which is ironic, given that what we're talking about. Okay, user FB9. You need a better name, user 900 EE1.
There you are.
Okay, yay! Thank you.
You.
Can hear and see you both. Yes. Okay.
Glowing,
yes.
Glowing
yes. We are live. Hello. We are live. Oh my gosh, Professor Rachel Fulton Brown wins at the tech fail again. Okay. So all of my lovely.
You have to stay on ground level. I think this is going to be the rule.
Okay. So yes. So. As you can tell from I have my above headlight, I am in the daylight somewhere where it is day, and all of the great things that I said before in the previous stream that you'll never see again because we are not going to post it. That we did a stream from my mother's basement, and I had to play with adaptable tech and stuff like that, and that one was appropriate to our mission. As well, this is a mission, not a show. Remember, you were watching last week. You know that. When we were on the road on Route 66 at my mom's and thinking about the land and I could do it better this time. The land and the meaning of the roads as rivers, and so that the sort of media interface of the land transportation. Now I am in a place where we have to think about the sea. And since our large scale theme is not just transportation and sea, but drugs and spices, I have come to the center of the entire trade. Mm-hmm. That European empire that you're so keen on worrying about, post-colonialist European empire, it started here. However, I mean, and what's interesting is, of course, I'm meeting people while I'm visiting. They talk about, okay, so we give you hints. Have you guys figured? Oh, Cheryl, hello, Cheryl, welcome. If you can figure out where we are, there's some hints, right? They talk about, so we face the Atlantic here and have our backs to Europe. So in fact, they don't, it's like European, but not really, which of course makes sense of why basically in medieval history, we barely ever touch this part of the country. Although we should, right? Because it's central to many of our stories. But the focus here is on the sea. The focus is on we had lovely fish for lunch on Monday. And the contact is much more, so some of the people for the conference that I'm here with came from across the sea and felt like they were in the same conversation, right? Because both of the places that we're coming, where we are now and where they're coming from, really face the Atlantic more than they face the land behind them, I think. Although I don't know, I haven't been to the other side, so I don't know where the people that are coming from that port think about themselves. But it makes sense for our mission here of collecting the energy lines. I don't know, how do we think about that? Cheryl says England. No, it's not England. Another guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way of describing it.
It's like the winds, the different trade winds. I suppose that's probably a good way of putting it. Yeah. We're following trade winds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're following trade winds. And definitely the trade down the Route 66 from Chicago to LA, and now where I am now is the port of one of the great routes across the Atlantic, across the ocean. Cheryl, if you're watching, so are we freezing and unfreezing in video? Because I'm also having to stream from an unfamiliar Wi-Fi, so I'm hoping it's going to work. I'm happy Cheryl's watching so that we can get some feedback on what people are seeing. Although there's often, as with all of these things, there's a bit of a delay on. You're the only one here, I know. This is actually good, because what's our theme tonight? Tomorrow morning. Wait, whatever day it is. It's the morning for me. It's the evening for Kilts.
Welcome to old time.
Welcome to old time. Yes, all time. But what's our theme tonight? Yeah, all time. Stream time. We're in stream time. What's our theme in stream time? Okay, good. Thank you, Cheryl.
In stream time?
Yes.
Our theme in stream time.
Our theme in stream time. We've turned into babbling women. Come on, let's get on topic here.
Arts. We're talking about art.
Arts. Okay.
Yeah.
What is our problem in art?
Why you're where you are.
This is why I'm where I am.
Yes. So the trade winds have taken you somewhere, and you're talking about art, and that's why we're talking about it, because it's important. And also the artists are starting to do some interesting things, so we wanted to discuss that. As a follow-on from our last stream.
We are going to go into edgy waters again, are we? Off the edge of the world.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're quite literally in edgy waters right now.
Well, there has been, my reputation from the other side of the ocean followed me a bit, so there's been a little edginess here. Concerns with what kind of positions I hold on things like, I've been called a conspiracy theorist, but that just means I think people talk.
That's just a tinfoil crown of honor.
That's a tinfoil crown of honor, right? And whether I rouse up arguments among medievalists. Well, we knew I did that, but maybe. So shall I say the edgiest thing I think I've actually said in the professional conversations here?
Go for it.
Well, one of the excellent papers was about Christian, whether there could be such a thing as a Christian poetics. And you will like this, because he was talking about George Steiner. I know you sometimes think about Steiner and his work with art, and the big problem of whether there's such a thing as a real presence.
Oh, do you mean Rudolph?
Oh, maybe I was confusing Steiners. Haha. Okay, I confused Steiners. There's different Steiners.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
no. Okay, so these are different Steiners. I mean, that's important information, right? So the Rudolphs, I was confusing them completely. The Rudolf Steiner who started the schools and is worried about art, right? So okay, I just conflated the two of those. Yes. George Steiner is famous for a book he wrote on real presences and sort of thinking about what it means. I'm getting some of this from the talk that we heard. What it means to have a sense of the real presence, and as Catholics or Christians, Christian whatever we are, wherever you and I are, we need a term for it. Catholics, apostolic, right? That the real presence is the Eucharist and the presence of God in the consecrated host, right? So the liturgy is an experience of the real presence. But Steiner, forget about Rudolf Steiner. George Steiner was Jewish. And one of the things that came out in the conversation yesterday was the degree to which in Jewish understanding, the presence is something that comes out in the conversation around a text. And specifically, it's like Talmudic study when they're talking about the teachings, as we learned from Ari, that they're talking about the teachings. In that conversation arises the Shekinah, the presence of the Lord, and George Steiner, in his literary theory, as one of the commentators suggested yesterday, seems to be, he's not really necessarily speaking as a Christian, although Christians will hear it as such because we think in terms of the real presence, we think in terms of the presence of Christ in the Eucharist. And so if we hear that word the phrase real presence, we'll think, oh, he's talking about the Eucharist, and he may not be. and this sort of came out of in the discussion. It's like whether or not Steiner, I think he never technically said he converted, right? So whatever happened in his heart, or with God, we don't know. But that he never described himself as Christian, and his description of the presence seems to fit more with this. I've heard lectures on the way that the Jewish experience is about this conversation around the text, right? It's a very beautiful way of thinking, but it's not the same as our liturgical understanding. And so this was set up in the papers, whether or not there could be such a thing as a Christian poetics. And I, of course, because this is my holy fool role, I hope, academically speaking. So, well, as far as I'm concerned, poetics is only Christian. Shock, horror, because it's about making, right? Because poesis is actually making. And if we're doing poetry, which I would say in this context is the larger scale of art, right? It's like we talk about art as a craft or a making or a skill that's one of the things we're trying to puzzle out tonight, right? Today, whatever it is. I think I'm at tonight and I got the sun shining on me. It's very hard to switch time zones.
Welcome to
my
life.
No, the thing is, I don't know what time zone I'm in. I'm used to streaming at night, so I think I'm at night, and I've got the sun above me, and so it's clearly daytime.
You've entered the primordial oblivion now.
It's like the stream time is all time. Yes, so we're definitely on River Run by now, right? That poesis in Greek is making, and so that art. And then of course you get the problem with Aristotle wrote the Poetics and stuff. So clearly the Greeks have some idea of whatever, right? But the way in which we're thinking about the human creativity and making and such is theologically explained through Christianity, that God makes us and enters into the world as a human being, but as a great act of making and subcreation and remaking and so forth. And so the Christian poetics is almost a tautology. Christianity is about making. And I think the other way works too, but then you truly end up in trouble because, if we're going to make claims as Christians and say art is, we have been shown the truth, that it's been revealed to us through Christ, that this is the truth of reality. It's like there's not alternate realities and other choices. And we also, of course, say if indeed Aristotle is able to write about poetics, he is tapping into that truth, that reality, which is prefigured, prophesied in the Old Testament, and therefore maybe in also other literatures, but fulfilled in the Gospels, fulfilled in the Incarnation.
Where it's realized.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so why is this so scandalous?
Well, I mean, one, because Christians are little kitties. And for curious reasons, we don't want to just say this is the truth. We've got, and of course, I mean, one of the things now I've got my Steiners confused, and I'm pretty sure I heard about this. I mean, that I think he's, oh dear, now I'm not sure who I heard about yesterday. Most of the I'll give you another hint. Most of the conversations in Portuguese, and insofar as I had colleagues translating for me, I understood some of it in better precision than other parts of it. I think, yes, is that Steiner is like, he's talking about the Holocaust in a period in which nobody will, and he's talking about the old criticism of literature in a period in which everyone's talking about the new criticism. I mean, he was a bit of a borderer, like us borderers, right? You live on the border and you bring up the things that nobody wants. It's like, clearly I live on borders. Here I am on the border of the world. And, what I said in my talk too, that this is, in Christianity is this mode of, not just juxtapositions, but and maybe hybridity, but I was talking about comics. And so Christian art is fundamentally both about the word and the image. It's about text and, I guess, icon, heaven and earth, it's all of these. Christians, we live on the border. We absolutely live on and in my talk too, I was talking about the Codex Amiatinus, which has this amazing rendering in book form of the temple veil, because there's this page in the book that's purple that you basically have to turn to get inside the book. And the next image in the book is an image of the tabernacle. It's an image of the wilderness, the wilderness tabernacle. And you turn this purple page, which means you like enter through the veil into the tabernacle. And of course, it's scandalous. It's absolutely scandalous for Christians to claim this from a rabbinic perspective, that we enter into, or Christ is our great high priest that entered into the world from the Holy of Holies, and then carried the sacrifice back through the Holy of Holies, and the temple veil is rent. But that we are priests, the great, he's our great high priest, and we are called to be priests and kings. We're called to serve. And I guess that therefore, I'd never thought of this before. We're meant to be constantly passing back and forth from the heavenly to the earthly, to live on that border. We're border people. We're wilderness border people. I'm gonna own that. and I, maybe that scares people. They don't like living on the borders, on the edges, in the wilderness, and the passing between the heavenly and the earthly, the text and the image. People much prefer being in tight, not tidy categories, but just being on the border feels dangerous, I think.
It is, because it's hard to measure when you've gone to the frontier. There's no way of measuring, right? Because that's the idea. You hit the frontier. There's no longer any map. It's beyond something that's measurable. Similar to when people are leaving their land of origin and entering the ocean and going off into the high seas. That kind of experience where artists are doing this as well. So this makes sense to me that Christianity is inherently poetic. It is poetic because good artists should be going to the border of human experience and puncturing it and then coming back into it and bringing whatever they can with them to show everybody something that they haven't seen before. We were talking about the artist last week. Remember when Ye's he's made his White Lives Matter shirt that's caused so much controversy, and you were explaining, this assortment of elements in that T-shirt that's been lost on everybody because it's text and image and it's back and front and it's the whole the way that the entire thing's been curated and put together. That's text and image. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
That definitely, didn't talk about that last week, but yes, it back and front, and we talked about how people only ever looked at the back, and they didn't look at the front, and they didn't talk about the juxtaposition of the images and the languages and the
So that was a one beautiful example of what we're doing. We're looking towards the Holy of Holies. The world sees the back of us and has a completely different impression than what's going on at the front.
Yes, exactly. And everybody obsessed on the back of the shirts.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, and what's interesting is, and that was the only image that got circulated massively, although there were plenty of images of the front too. So I think this is a nice key. Sorry, just to open up the chat again because Cheryl is still in there with us, and we make sure that. Okay, who needs maps? Oh, it's good. Welcome, Etherzar. You're awake. Now we know when he wakes up. Very early.
Now we know who the insomniacs are.
We know who the insomniacs are. SHK Azores. Well, close, but Azores. That's not how they say it here, right? But they definitely belong to this people. Okay, what I need to do now before we carry on is fix it so my screen doesn't keep turning off. Yes, I have to do that every time because otherwise the auto lock blanks me out. Okay, there we go. Okay, back and front, right? So you were saying, why do people find this threatening? Maybe it's because so often they're only seeing one side of things, right? That Christianity requires us to think multidimensionally, and when people only see the text, or only see the image, or only see the back, or only see the front, or only see the desert and don't see the sea, that they are, well, I mean, obviously just misinterpreting, but now stuck, right? It's like you get stuck. You can't. So the talk that I was talking about was about how images help us read the books. And that these books, these giant monastic productions of text, are framed with images because the images help us enter into the text. And that, interestingly enough, no matter how literate you are, without the frame, without the revelation, without the showing of the incarnation, we read incorrectly. So if going back to Steiner, if what he's mainly concerned with is text and not image, the presence in this conversation that you have around a text, which is, the argument that Christians have with Jews, that without the incarnation, you can't see clearly and you're going to misinterpret. And then, I mean, potentially get upset but why? I mean, it's sort of that. So now we've done both. It's threatening to be aware of it's not duality, right? Because duality implies contradiction in these things. I'm struggling for the word that it should be, that somehow the text and the image have to work together for the fullness of reality to be accessible, I suppose, to the understanding and to the heart. And if you're only focused on one or the other. Well, okay, so you only focus on the image.
Concordant. They have to be concordant, right?
Concordant, that's the word. Yes. If you only focus on the image, oh, well, we know what that problem is called. And if you only focus on the text, something else is missing, right? So if you're only focused on the image, it's idolatry. You're and somehow we need to think about that. We have some images. Do you want to look at images? We have some pictures to work with here.
I love images.
Okay. Ye's wife.
Oh, this one.
I would say you picked the pictures for today, so you need to talk us through these.
How do I explain myself?
What's going on in this curious juxtaposition?
I don't know. I just saw it. I intuitively thought this is important, so I grabbed these images, and I was thinking about okay, so I was thinking about how Kanye kind of works with the surround sound, as I've been saying for a little while, and since the stream last week, and I said he works in surround sound, so I can kind of understand that. And then thinking about how surround sound thinkers approach graphic lettering, because it's going to behave slightly differently. So I was posting like one of the other t-shirts that he's made about being in ultralight beams, and then I was thinking about 5 things are happening in my head at once. Then I was thinking about terrible fan art, and
that's just a description of all our art about God, right?
Well, yeah. That's it.
Terrible
but
fan art.
Thinking,
us poor little poets in our terrible fan art.
Scribbling and making these really cute drawings that we think are amazing.
Daddy,
like,
I love you. Here, I drew a picture.
Yeah. Exactly. But like in terms of iconography, I was thinking, there's this real sense now where people are starting to get stuck in face as brand instead of face as icon of God. And we were talking about that last week as well, like this is really the big controversy with Ye. And it's that we're being whittled down to corporation. So I was thinking about this idea of like restoring the icon of God that is humankind. And then I saw this fan art of Kim Kardashian, which was like a 3-year-old scribbling, and I thought, like, it was kind of a cute way of showing what our attempt at restoring ourselves looks like when we don't have God as the artist who's restoring us.
Well, there's an interesting thing. It's like you could juxtapose her. It's a funny picture of her because her eyes are kind of wide.
It's a bit wonky.
It's a bit wonky, but obviously she is decorated herself, right? That she's got fake eyelashes and her brows are very nicely trimmed, and her lips look like they've had some help, maybe. So there's the art that we're doing of the humans, and then there's the humans, ornamenting ourselves, which some people find problematic. Do you find that problematic? The makeup as such? Are we play? My hair's all frizzy now because I can't. Wherever I am, I couldn't bring my curling iron because I would worry about blowing up my host's electrical circuits. But it's like there's big arguments out there about the degree to which we as the little children of God should be ornamenting ourselves at all.
Well, it's like, obviously I can't say I'm against it because I'm wearing what I'm wearing.
Defend yourself, woman. Come on.
Pardon?
Defend yourself, woman.
Well, no, I'm thinking of how I'm going to best defend myself because this is the thing. This meme. Have you seen the meme where it's like the goth chick and then there's like the pretty flower girl, trad girl, and she's like, the blonde, the meme. It's like a 4chan meme, and everyone uses it all the time. And it's the pretty blonde girl, and she's
the
very
sketches, the little drawings, right? And there's the goth girl. And
yeah.
I like the goth girl better, so that's fine.
Well, yeah, but this poor goth girl, she always gets thrown into all of these memes about eating up liberalism. Then there's this other magnificent one where it was like Western Europe, and it was this girl who was covered in rainbows and her hair is rainbow, and then next to her is Eastern Europe. And it's this pale goth chick who looks miserable, and she's judging Western Europe for being in rainbows. So no, I don't see a problem with it at all. For me, to do this is just another it's just another way of expressing creativity, and it's not really any different than wearing clothing.
Right. I think some people worry about clothing too. I mean, it's like saying we should dress more plainly. I mean, for goodness sake, even the Amish wear flowered like fabrics. So let's say if as soon as you've put clothing on, and I mean, the irony there is like Ye's high fashion stuff is very plain. It's the except for the T-shirt with the words on it, but a lot of the other things are quite they're muted colors, they're unstructured, as they say, fabrics and tailoring and such. So you can be vain with quite plain ornament. Maybe it's not the ornament itself that's the problem.
Well, it's just like, for me, it's another way of manifesting that kind of wild expression of European folk costume, which was obliterated by industrial fashion. Because now everybody, and I think this is why the leftists have gone so crazy in the way they dress. But once everyone is kind of industrialized, you enter a state where you're buying pre-made clothing that has been assembled for you. It's not being made by artisans. It hasn't been made by people that come from your region. It doesn't reflect any kind of folk identity. And it's a kind of collision between utility and what's the word? Just buying things for the sake of it because it's on trend, or it's like this. This is a kind of seasonal thing. Whereas folk costume had some kind of story behind it. What I like about people's folk traditions around the world is that there is a kind of story element to it, and also it can kind of reflect the personality of the people and what they're doing, and they get to infuse themselves in the way they dress. And yeah, I mean, I don't see that as vain. It's kind of like, it's another way of kind of telling your story with your poetic way of being, I mean, if we're not going to be naked, because no one's going to run around naked, then why not look fabulous?
I think you did it. I think no. It's making the argument indeed from the folk costume, which was always about joy and beauty and celebration. I mean, if you put flowers in your hair, you're already adding ornament.
Yeah.
And you put,
even if they're quote unquote natural looking, like, this is why the meme is so stupid. It's like they pull out all these pictures of all these Ukrainian girls and like Eastern European women with the wheat and the flowers in their hair running through wheat fields, and it's like, oh, isn't she so wholesome? She's trad. And it's like all these horrendous goth girls that are all like liberal and anti-civilizational and anti-Christian. Where like if you look at Mediterranean styles of dressing, they did a lot with black, and it was very modest and very chaste, incredibly pious. So no, I don't like the bigotry. I don't like the anti-black bigotry, which is
oh my God,
which is why I put it on my face.
So now we have yay.
People should be celebrating.
We have yay now. More fan art. So I'm
so
thinking
good.
in these drawings, it's like, why do people make fan art? I made the joke just a minute ago about it's like everything we do is fan art for God, or it should be, right? Christian art ought to be fan art for Daddy, and we do worry that, you know, whatever we make, although like robots and stuff, is that fan art for God? I just went in another place. You know, our desire to. So this is Elaine Scarry thinking about beauty, and she talks about how, you know, seeing beauty, one wants to draw it. And I, you know, grew up making drawings like this one, maybe not of Ye. Who did I draw? One of the Bee Gees, yeah, or something like that.
Oh.
Andy Gibb, maybe. That you see a face that you love, or that you're drawn to, or that you're fascinated by. There's something in that. And so the fan art is this longing to be in the presence, I suppose, but in a attentive way. It's like a drawing, even a drawing like this one, takes some attention, and you are attending closely to the beloved as you are engaged in the mimesis, in the representation.
Yes.
No, I was thinking,
No, I was thinking. Sorry, my brain was going somewhere when you were.
you have to study
You have to study someone's character when you're looking directly at their face.
the characters in
The characters in the face,
why the portrait,
which is why the portrait is so powerful,
and that's why they
and that's why those
bad
bad fan art is so amazing, because it's not just like, oh, this is terrible art. You sort of start to see how each individual perceives other people's faces and characters and all these odd things that like, what about someone else's face is popping out at them? And even in those terrible fan drawings, you start to see the character of the person is still there, even though it's like, in terms of the artistic quality, it's terrible, but you can still see that it's capturing some element of the person. Making something that wants to be in the real presence. Well, that's the other thing that I gave you. With that poor Spanish woman that got into trouble. Did you read the article that I posted earlier?
That's not my sequence right now. We'll get to it.
Okay.
We have some others. We have some others along the way.
All right.
But this, So maybe we should move through those so we can get to that idea, right? So we have let's symbol examples, right? Because one thing that we're also trying to do, obviously, in the mosaic is do these juxtapositions so that we start seeing the patterns. And there's definitely I thought about fan art a lot before, because I've thought about that as what devotional art always is. The kinds of books that I've been writing about that are written about Mary are these, you know, great assemblages of names of Mary, so that you are being able to talk. I mean, that's the word version, and then these are the visual version, that somehow you want constantly to be in the presence of the beloved, and so you are drawn to draw, and contemplate and name and speak of. I mean, fans also, they can't stop talking about their fans. So I guess we're Yay fans now, because we're still talking, continuing to talk about him. So we're drawn to him. We want somehow to make these videos, make the references, and that art is that engagement. I think therefore Steiner maybe is onto some, at least with that's the problem. I haven't read his book, so I'm working with the idea image of real presence, right? It's constantly wanting to be in the presence. And what does that mean? Well, okay, so we have another of our favorite people. Here he is, covered in blood. Wearing interestingly chains, which has been coming up in, I think Dave Chappelle has made some use of chains in his recent SNL moment, talking about what those heavy gold chains mean. And here's Milo in a hat, which I can't remember. It says it's one of the again hats. I can't remember what that one said. With photographs of other people that are now covered in blood because he's tapped the wall with his blood-covered hands, and he has 2 gold chains and 2 crosses around his neck, and sunglasses on. There's a lot in this image. I wonder if he knew that.
Can you break it down for us, please?
I just gave you all the elements. So we were looking at pictures that other people drew of Kim and Ye, and saying that's their desire to be in a picture. Well, now it's like clearly Milo made this picture, although photographer took it, but he's setting himself into this image moment to make an icon, which is an interesting. What do you see in this picture? I know what other people have seen, and they've been very worried about what the significance of this particular what was maybe another element that's important people may not know. This was for an art exhibition. Right? It was the I think they called it Twinks for Trump. I'm not sure, but it was Lucian Wintrich's photographs, right? Is that right? And it was an exhibit that they held in New York. I guess the last time I was on this side of the Atlantic, and that they'd had some trouble.
On the side of the shit.
Yeah, they'd had some trouble finding a location for it, and so there was some drama around that. And it was Trump-related art, so this had a political context in the imagery that he was performing here, but it was meant as a performance piece, which then photographs were taken of, which are now stills, which we can now talk about.
Yeah, well, apart from the obvious, which was like everyone saying, this is some kind of Illuminati initiation. But that's like...
Are we worried about these? I mean, it could have been accidentally. He's sitting in pig's blood, which he reported was very cold. Because you have to, and I
pre-warm it for it.
No, and to get it was actually a bit of an adventure too, because they had to get it from a butcher. I think imagine that there's people. Indeed, like to where did the blood come from? What happens to if you're having your breakfast and it's ham? What happened to the pig? Yeah. Okay, so it could have been some horrible initiation.
Well, it was it was an initiation, but that's just because art is an initiation in my mind. All art is, because you're being given an experience that you didn't have previously that should change you in some way. You're not the same after you've seen it. So in this sense, yes. But what was it in particular? I mean, I don't know, we have to ask him. Was he glowing afterwards with the, force of 1,000 suns after being, imbued with some kind of like occult power? Or was it just bringing people into a multi-sensorial icon? And that's what it looked like. It looked like a multi-sensorial icon of something, which was hard for people to unpack because I don't know if people think about those things consciously necessarily. They don't see art performances like that. But it's like bombarding all of the senses at once with different messaging that gets collated, and then it's like, okay, so then what are we actually looking at here? What is the artist trying to show us? Which didn't look very scary. In the whole surround experience of it, it seemed like the point wasn't occult, it was revelatory.
which we should attend.
Is that making sense?
I'm sitting here telling you, it's like I wish I could take notes while she's talking. Because that's how
Okay.
so I forgot my fidget toy too, and so I'm literally sitting on my hands because otherwise I'm in trouble. And I realized, as I listen, I need to write so that it goes in. Occult versus revelatory, bingo, right?
Yeah.
The occult,
Yeah,
you did that on purpose, but let's unpack that. Just that the occult, everyone assumes. No, this is really, really, really important. I think. That occult, we assume that means something's. Whatever we see is meant to obscure the truth of the message, right? And revelatory, which is what Christ is showing us the truth that, you could say that had been hidden. He's come out from the Holy of Holies through the veil.
Yes.
Into the world, and that revelation of God then enables us to go back through the veil with him into heaven so that we understand things. And so revelation, the revelation in Scripture, but the revelation as an experience is making that which was unseen seen. So indeed, it's occult and revelatory, and that is, there's been online obviously a lot of conversation about this image of Milo, and I've seen some recently, and the reverberations of this is you're saying he's glowing, right? Whether he comes out, he whether secretly he's a Fed, which is on one level one of the worst occult things you can be at the moment, glowing. Although everybody says you can see it easily because they glow in the dark online, so they're not in fact hidden, but they think they can be. Versus another layer down, which is he's a member of the wealthy. Illuminati, I think, is shorthand for that feeling that we have of the people in finance and business, and Ye's business, right? Show business, celebrities. You're talking about the celebrities are showing themselves, but there's always something secret and hidden behind them, which is the effort to control us by making us desire that connection with them. Okay, and then the deeper and most troubling. Oh yeah, I only got 3 levels, but maybe there are more. A deeper and more troubling level of it being that this is some kind of satanic baptism, straight up, right? That there is some way in which this is a spiritual disturbance by way. And I realize I'm talking about this, and you said that it's a performance piece, so it's actually not liturgical because there's no consecration here, but by way of, he came out, we had a video, but I'm not sure how to show videos yet. Don't get me trying because end up with more tech delight. That he made an entrance, he stepped into the tub, he sat there for a bit. We have another picture, and then people took pictures with him, which is interesting, right? It's like this one's very interesting because it's a young woman who I don't know who is, getting her picture, which you can see someone taking a picture of the picture being taken. Is very the meta levels here are brilliant and very Milosian. That all of that, as you say, is meant to draw us in, change us. There were other things you said that were wonderful. It's a good thing we've recorded them. Everybody get refer. You can go back and take notes. Yes, Milo wanted. He knew that this, as a performance, was meant to draw in and change people. There was actually like a overt message, which is those poor pictures on the wall. They're now even more covered in blood, which were people that had been killed by illegal immigrants. It's saying, as a political message, this is these people were part of our community, and we didn't protect them from people who had not legally been part of our community. And now this is, symbolically their blood that we are covered in because we have not taken care of our own home. I mean, the borders, and we've been talking about borders, right? We have not defended our borders, literally, in political terms. And so this bloodshed has come to us. But then, obviously, it was a bloodbath. So there's an activated metaphor there. But when you activate metaphors, things happen.
Yeah, I think that's why everyone found the link. It wasn't decorative art. It was transformative art. That's why it's so upsetting to everybody. Because the most exposure that people seem to have now with these kinds of transformative art forms, they've kind of begun thinking about it from the perspective of secret societies doing this to communicate something with each other, or as some kind of control mechanism, instead of looking at it as a continuation of the more ancient forms of just basic human communication. You know, these kinds of dramatic environments that people create with each other in rituals are very similar. Like I'm thinking of things like weddings or funerals or those kinds of things. It's like you've got to have particular things set up in order for someone to say, okay, I know now I'm at a wedding, or I'm at a funeral. You know, if you have no flowers, it doesn't make any sense to have these kinds of occasions without flowers or whatever. So people automatically just kind of expect certain things to be in certain places because they're like, okay, in this multi-sensorial ritual, what are we doing? We're communicating that now everybody's going to grieve. Okay, now we're going to send this dead person off, and it's like, okay, that's fine, it's acceptable. Those kinds of art performances are doing exactly the same thing, only they're out of context. They're shocking. So that's like the shock factor that comes in. People find it very uncomfortable because they're not expecting those particular elements to be arranged together, and they don't know exactly why they're there. So it's confusing, and people get very nervous when they're confused. That's why people like Ye are so threatening. Good artists are really threatening because they're confusing people in a way that they're not expecting.
Yeah.
And like being transformed by surprise.
Well,
It's
people,
quite an
as you're saying,
experience.
people don't like being surprised. They're, you know, that entertainment industries make money on the pretense of surprise. Maybe that's I've always disliked the. I mean, I've always disliked the believe what, right?
Yeah.
But the, you know, sort of, you will be taken on this adventure, and it's like, actually you won't. You'll be strapped into a, you know, amusement park ride that you hope has no real danger. And just like,
Yeah.
nobody likes it when amusement park rides break. You want. I mean, there's a possibility of that happening, which makes it somewhat thrilling, but that's not really why you go on those roller coasters rides. You don't want to be shocked. You want to be given
No.
I mean, it's going back to the, you know, Daddy, here's my beautiful picture of you. You know, you want the feeling of being flung up in the air by your father, but not the threat
Yes.
of actually being dropped. And
Yep.
so I was thinking about what I said, was drawing attention to with Milo and the imagery. I will, you know, make sure that you understand he was not naked, and they made this like show of making him come out in the towel and stuff like that. But, you know, towels can cover shorts too, right? And if you
Yes.
watch the video carefully, you realize he's not naked, but he's creating the illusion that he has no clothes on. So we're talking about clothing, right? And the shockingness of whether he's clothed or unclothed, which is one layer. But then he is overly clothed with his glasses and his chains and the crosses as well. He was always wearing those particular double
Yes.
crosses at that time. What Dave Chappelle said about it was Dave Chappelle in his SNL routine, right? About the entertainers wearing chains. Oh, maybe he was saying that Ye said something about, you wear the chains until you're a millionaire, but then when you're a billionaire, you don't wear the chains anymore. And Chappelle plays with the necklace that he has on, like covering it up in your, you know, it's like, oh, I'm a billionaire now, I've hidden my chain. But that the sort of ornament is in fact a chain to your celebrity, to your money, to you are enchained by this. I mean, it's gold, right? I always found those necklaces kind of disturbing because they do look like literal chains. I mean, they are literal chains. They're ornamentally chains, but they also are chains that bind you to something else. Although the crosses that Milo wears, they're also, you could say, which is the difference, which is the gold chains versus the a cross that you wear. And then the glasses are, hiding his eyes. So you never actually see him. It's always a mask. Milo is the character that shows up in big sunglasses. Rather than, as with the fan art with Ye and Kim we were seeing, they were trying to draw their faces. That Milo's icon is his eyes covered.
Yes. Which is a kind of screen.
Right.
That's a two-way mirror.
He often wears mirrored glasses, yes. So you looking at him end up looking at you if you take a picture of him.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, isn't that funny? You're looking at yourself.
You will, longtime viewers and readers of Fancy Bear at Prayer, please read my blog, will know that I wrote a book about this via blogs, thinking about the way in which all of Milo's performances were showing us something, right? He's always staged things. Ye and Milo. Can I fangirl a little bit? Yes, I can. Ye, I was listening to Ye's Jesus is King, and I really need to listen to that a lot more. This is a mission, not a show. We're missioning here. We're, trying to draw you in, bring you into the presence, that you do not just get to watch. Leslie, we're chatting. User says, Rachel's screen is frozen, but we can still hear. Oh, well, hopefully it'll come back. It seems to be coming in and out like that. Now I'm still.
No, I can see you moving. It's
the OBS picking up. So yes, so that I'll come in and out as video versus icon, clearly in this particular episode. I'm not sure what to do, how to jiggle it without changing this screen, which I don't want to do. Okay, so Milo was always very conscious of the vision, of the picture that he was creating with whatever clothes he was wearing, with whatever set he had created, and therefore with this one, with the bath and the pig's blood and the clothes that he was and wasn't wearing, and the images behind him, everything is meant to be there to be acting on you as viewer, I think. But also, it's one of the things that the gallery complained about later is that everybody got splashed with that blood. They weren't quite expecting Milo to frolic, I think, in the blood, and it spattered on the walls, but it also spattered on the floor and such. And so by the end of the evening, it was kind of covering everything, and that is clearly also part of the meaning, therefore, of the poetry in this installation.
Everybody ends up with blood on their hands.
Yes. Everybody ends up with blood on their hands.
Yeah.
I'm going to try plugging and unplugging my video here just a sec. We'll have Mel not use these parts in the clips, right? And I'm back.
Or she'll just clip all of those moments.
Yeah, she'll just clip all the moments when I'm still and coming back and in and out. So I froze while talking about Milo in the tub. No, this I feel so. I'd say. One of the other things about, you could say, great art. Certainly great Christian art should make you puzzle through these layers of meaning. That there's, and not that it's a cult, that it's revelatory, that he's trying to show. Well, we'll move to the next one, which is our Lord. It's a mosaic.
Yeah.
that these images, the classic images of, oh, now I remember that there's something about the crucifixion I had in mind. Now I've forgotten it. That it's that shocking image that we're meant to be drawn in and reflected by, but that wasn't it. That wasn't what I was thinking. We've got with this particular photography, these images, and there's too many things going through both of our heads at the same time to capture it all, which is the way it should be when you're dealing with art. Yes.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the Pantocrator. What do we think about that?
Well, why I chose that, because it's a mosaic. And also because this is the beginning of art. For me, like, looking at that image, it was just thinking about how trippy it is that Christ decides to make people in his image, and then while he's doing it, knowing that he's going to become one of them, potentially. Like, it's very funny, but yeah, when I was looking at the mosaic image of Christos Pantokrator, it's like, okay, that's like the ultimate meta imagery, because he made face.
He made it, and then the artists make
you know
it.
What I mean?
And this is so I say this is exactly like the drawing of Ye, or the drawing of Kim by us
exactly.
of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just it's like more fan art of God making fan art. Because he's created us as the art reflecting his own image. So that's why I liked it. That's why I chose, I was like, okay, well, we have to get an image there of that kind of icon, because in that sense, like, we've all been created in the image of that one face,
Right.
which we only see through the incarnation.
I did a blog post some time ago about the face of God, which is the one Milo post that didn't get in the book because it had all the images, and we didn't put pictures in the book. And the sort of question of what if you are representing the face of God, what does it look like? What does his face look like? And I was reflecting on a article where they'd done a scientific study of asking people what they thought Jesus looked like, and then blended them. So they ended up with this blended image. And my first example was Milo, but not Milo in the tub covered with blood, because he's not our sacrifice. But Milo, in effect, penitent before the world at the press conference where he was talking about why he said what he said about being abused, and sort of he's kind of looking down, and he's like that, and so therefore not projecting the glamour character, and not with glasses on. He has no glasses on in that one. And then I compared it with some other, it's like, I think I ended up with like 12 or 16 different options. I can't remember. And there was a range of pictures, right? From the world to the Mona Lisa to Albrecht Dürer as Christ, right? And when the artist used their own face in the mirror to be, to represent Christ, which is, sort of a Renaissance self-fashioning joke. But wait, as you're saying, it's like God made our faces. So if we're painting our own faces, are we representing the image? I had some other selections, such as Ganesha, the Hindu god who has an elephant head. We're kind of on themes of elephants in the poetry at the moment. The bloody elephant. The world itself, like the whole globe, in those representations. A crowd. So you have lots of faces, and then a 10th century manuscript that's basically just Rothko kind of blue. It's like Mark Rothko was anticipated by 1,000 years, because there were medieval painters that understood this problem of representing God as sort of color that you losing yourself in contemplation, the infinite, or not the infinite, because they don't have that concept in the Middle Ages. Whatever God is, right? Through the veil into the Holy of Holies. What do you see?
Light.
Yes. Yes. And therefore, always in art, I mean, the degree to which we, our own faces, photographs of us, representations of Christ, but who do we use as model? I mean, then there's also those things that get circulated around the internet with the either skull reconstructions off of, I guess, the skull that they're projecting out of the shroud of Turin, I'm not sure. Blended images of people from the region. So you look Lebanese or Syrian.
Like a Syro-Phoenician AI generated Jesus face.
Right, yeah, I've seen those. And that were, that I mean, that in the iconographical tradition, that there's supposed to be conventions for representing Jesus, because then you know for sure that that's what he looks like. You can't make him outside of the canon of representations, because otherwise you might not be representing him. It's like, well, hopefully, if we have Saint Luke there painting Our Lady as she was at the Annunciation, or no, I think no, he doesn't do the Annunciation. He does the Hodegatria, she's holding the child and pointing to him. I think that's the right one. But there's always this desire of saying, just like, this is the image made without human hands. This is the unhuman. But our hands are God's made creatures. These are our art. If we make art with our hands, we're making God's image with the image He made. It gets very trippy very quickly.
Yeah, well, Ye said, like, God made man, and that was a selfie. I forget the line. It was from one of his songs. But he gets it. He gets it. It's a God taking a selfie in us, and then having that, having Christ in all of us, is that that grand mosaic of every single person who's a part of his body, then reflecting him into the world. Just like that Pantocrator mosaic, It's like all of us individually assemble him on the earth.
But so you could do those images that are made of other images, the little mosaic. It's like tiny little images that go together to make a picture as a mosaic.
Yep. Like when they've got a million pictures of Jimi Hendrix to get the Jimi Hendrix portrait.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are absolutely all of us are an element. I mean, and it's like, is it mosaic or hologram? I realize, because a hologram, every fragment of the photographic plate can reproduce the whole image. It's fun. It's light waves. Ether's our tell them. If he's still watching.
Bring in the physicists.
We need an electromagnetician. Is there one in the house? That the hologram, every particle of it, every piece of it can, if you shine the correct wavelength back through it, can reproduce the whole thing. So we could say, are we holograms? And that is, God, the world is the hologram, and every one of us reflects the whole of our image. Or is God our collection? Are all of the human beings that have ever been born or conceived, more accurately probably, all of the human beings that have ever been conceived are part of that image of God. So that's why one of my choices of the image of God was the crowd. It's like it takes all of us to make the image of God, not any one of us holographically. So mosaic or hologram. I mean, we made both of those. Both of those are art forms that we have as God's creatures poetically made. Therefore, yes. This is all yes.
Always reaching for what's beyond the connection.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I don't like the face covering. I want that to stop. The iconoclasm of the human face has to stop. Because we're not even like, thinking about that, we're not even, we're so obsessed with making fan art of other people's faces. We're not even looking at the prototype anymore when people are covered up like that. There's no, it's like the window's closed. It's like the veil's been put over, it's it's the anti-apocalypse to have everyone covered up like this.
I mean, wow. Yes. the no, it's like the masks are veils that, that we showed that on our Corona Files one, that I wore a belly dancer veil for my mask, and I realized some of it was because you
were animated.
It moved, right? It was still because the veil had the beads on it and the gold, it could still shimmer. Right, which like the mosaics. I mean, I'm thinking about the mosaic and the Panchakarta and why mosaics are so beautiful. They're made of lots of little pieces. They have like gold foil behind them. They're glass, but they have the foil backing them, so they're three-dimensional in a sense, right? So that they can catch the light and send it back out. They reflect, and that technology was in fact. Where do we go next? Oh, we're to the Ecce Homo now. Oh well. No. Go back to the mosaic. I know, because I know that in our stack there's some pictures of the decorated skeletons, and I was thinking of relics that we know some reliquaries in the Middle Ages were made with like silver backing. So there's the backing, the fragment of the body, and then a crystal covering, so that when you see, you as the viewer looks at that relic, it reflects back the light of heaven, as it were. And this mosaic technology is trying to achieve it. I should finish my sentences because I keep interrupting myself. I've been watching our videos and I realize I stop it. Now I've made a complete parentheses of thinking about it, parentheses. Okay, so the mosaic technology is reflecting the light back at you. The glass technology, where you have windows where the light shines through and it changes color because of the way it's refracted through that glass. I mean, all of these are elements of our...
So it's similar to a screen, like the way we're looking now. We're looking at screens which are projecting light at us. So what you're describing is a kind of ancient form of doing this, illusion of having light projected out onto whoever's looking at the mosaic tile or the relic.
I get, yes. Our screens, our LEDs, whatever's behind these screens, right? They're shining at us, and the mosaic is actually reflecting. So we are, yes. When you're looking at mosaic, it's sending light at you. Ethers, are we right? Ferris Blue Bear. I'm working on an audience participation piece called Firing Squad. Ask some blah blah blahs. Interesting. Okay. The mosaic, when you're looking at it, is shining onto you, but it's reflected light rather than the light that's come through a window is coming on me today. And one way or another, you're in light. We have definitely having you be thinking about that. So that one of the things that came up yesterday in the seminar was this problem of presence, problem of participation, the degree to which we find ourselves inside the art, which I realize I'm always doing, right? The Christian poesis is, you must find yourself inside this. You are not just spectator of the art. As I'm starting to fangirl in because I actually listened to the album. Go, yay, right? This is a mission. He got me totally. I was like, oh man, this he really, no. And the thing is, I think I didn't get it because the first time I listened to Jesus King, all I knew was what Jonathan Pajot had said about him in that lecture. And so I'm just listening to the songs. I'm like, oh, they're okay, And of course, now I'm hearing them, having listened to him speak more, and I'm hearing the echoes and the resonances of what he's doing. And when he's saying this is a mission, not a show, you are in it, right? the yet again the Pirates of the Caribbean, I don't believe in ghost stories. You best believe them, Miss Turner. You're in one. We're in this, and the mosaic is trying to make us in it. It wants us to be inside of Christ. Which is a problem, therefore, when we get the redone Ecce Homo. We talk about that one.
I was crying laughing for an hour when I was looking at that. Oh my gosh. So, this poor Spanish woman. The funniest thing about it is have you got the picture up?
Yes.
This poor Spanish woman, she was complaining. She said they didn't let me finish.
It's not gonna help.
I've ever heard. Because she just wanted to finish her art, and it's like that was true devotion, despite all odds.
I mean, why not let her finish?
There's
There's not, it's like in the state that it's in right now. It's fan art.
Yeah. So she's gone. she's in a church, and there's this beautiful old icon of Christ in the church that's been peeling away, and it's degrading it. This parishioner's decided that she wants to take the labor on herself to restore the icon. Having obviously no training whatsoever in doing art restoration. And then finds out that she's wanted by police because somebody's reported her for vandalism of this icon, even though she claimed that she was restoring it and repainting it in full view of the parish and the priests that were at her church. But I was just, if I think about it, I'm gonna start again. There were too many elements about this which were hilarious. The first was just like childlike innocence, like it was like a fan art moment. She just saw this, degraded icon and thought, I will try my best. I will try my best. I will try my best to restore this. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm gonna lose it.
Okay, so your delight is joy in the innocence of the love.
I just think about Jesus Christ looking at
We've lost Kilts. She's over the edge. Oh, look, and we've lost me. I froze again.
Sorry, I told you I was gonna lose it. It was. I don't know why I find this so hilarious.
Okay, so this is Kilts she's the live streamer in contemplation of the restoration of the icon, incapable of making speech, covering her face now. This I think the meta levels hit every single time.
Far out. Can you imagine Jesus is there? We're talking about the real presence. Old Spanish woman with no art training at all. She's making him look like a monkey. I'm sorry, it's just so funny.
I'm not sure what to do with you right now. So we're supposed to be speaking. And you're incapable. You're simply in holy laughter. I think is the. It's like the joy of. I think that one hopes that God has this response to our efforts, right? Because most of what we do. Most of what we do looks like this. We don't get to be better than God at making beauty.
No. Like, she's just genuinely got her heart in the most beautiful place. All she wants to do is a nice picture of the Lord, and she makes him look like a monkey.
I'm going to change pictures so she can't see these and she's still laughing. Oh, look, we've got a guy with a bag on his head, which is the opposite.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I find this so hilarious.
Well, no, the thing is,
I'm crying off all my black,
which is appropriate too. So no, the thing is, I think it's exactly I love it. I love that because this is we should, and this is you have no, my dear, I'm going to meta this. That you have just demonstrated what we mean by resuscit bellum, right? It's this the sweetness of our attempts at loving God and that we come into the world and we are ridiculous. We are every single time. This is the literal opposite of everything that everyone's worrying about with, Ye and Milo and the celebrities and the chains and the beauty and don't misbehave. I think in the version of the video that we lost when I'm talking about people worrying about who I am and stuff like that at this conference and you're constantly in this, we need to stay proper and don't embarrass yourself and not have the effort. This should have shamed her, and instead what she said was, I didn't finish. They didn't let me finish. And the opposite of it is, it's like this guy, is this someone you know? I don't, it's like, there's a bear in the background of this, and paparazzis, all these people taking photographs of this man who is, he's in evening clothes and it seems to be fairly fit. But with a bag on his head that is inscribed, "I'm not famous anymore."
Oh, no, that's Shia LaBeouf.
Ooh, very good. Okay.
Shia.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I watched the video with
Shia.
Bishop Barron and I can't remember how he was saying his name, and they apparently know each other in person. So I don't know. Okay, so that's he's taller than I thought he was, or at least he's slender in that picture. Okay, so I'm not famous anymore.
Okay, so I had to include that because it was about, like, connected to this entire history of 4chan trolling Shia LaBeouf into just rage on screen, because he was really into performance art, so he understands this.
Yes.
He understands this.
We're just gonna clip that of Kilts laughs for a good 2 minutes. She's gonna start again. No, wait. Breathe.
I want to meet that woman. So anyway, the multisensorial, right? This kind of like multi-dimensional iconography where someone's invited into the experience. So Shai, he gets this. He's been doing performance art for ages, and he was saying when he was talking to the bishop, this is what the Roman Mass was giving him. He started to see Christ through the liturgy and see the revelation of the Lord through this multi-sensorial experience. So he sees the real presence of the Lord there in the Eucharist for this reason. And he'd been going through all of these weird performance art phases and doing these things which are anti-Trump. The opposite of what Milo was doing.
Yes.
With his bloodbath and wanting to build the wall. And Shai is like, he will not divide us.
Well, I have that one too. So here we have, he will not divide us.
Yeah, so he sets up a camera in this place, and he wants to have this like 24-hour streaming thing going on, and of course 4chan get on it immediately and start using it to troll him. But the paper bag over the face where he says, "I'm not famous anymore," I mean, that was a fantastic thing, but very somber, because what do you do as an artist once you get famous? And then you're no longer ridiculous because your face becomes the brand. So then I see this kind of plastic bag, paper bag moment where he's standing on the red carpet trying to deny fame. And yet the irony is that once you get famous, you can't get unfamous, as Dave Chappelle said. So he's kind of stuck with it. Like, what do you do when your own face becomes attached to branding that you're unable to reject. It was really fascinating little prank that he did.
Oh, that's great, because I was thinking the thing that the bag makes you curious about is who is it? So there's a
Who is this?
who is this? Who used to be famous? And yeah. And this
Well,
is
like,
so I find I can't say his name right, and I wouldn't recognize him, bag or no bag. So I only actually know him in the pranks, right? I recognized him as Shia LaBeouf in the He Will Not Divide Us, because I think I saw some of that performance, and I remember reading about it. So I don't actually recognize his face, which is ironic.
Well, if you're standing on the red carpet with the bag over his face too, it's kind of it's sort of like showing that people don't really care who's there as long as they're on the red carpet.
Right.
Interchangeable. You could cut and paste, put a different face on it. It's irrelevant. It's like, as long as this person is on the red carpet, they possess this thing called fame, and therefore they're getting attention, even with a paper bag. Because it's not about the face necessarily, even. It's just them standing on the red carpet. That was a good troll.
And so it's what you were saying about the setting for things. That is if you can end up on the red carpet, and there's a whole sort of ritual. I mean, like that one, I've got it back. I've got the bag. I'm flipping back and forth between bag and He Will Not Divide Us. That the picture includes all the people taking pictures. It includes all the paparazzi and journalists and photographers in the background. So the ritual there is, if you are on the red carpet, you are famous. And then what the people watching, particularly those my age who never go to the movies anymore, except for Pirates, ask is, well, who is that? They must be famous, except for you don't know who they are. And so you have to ask. Yeah.
They're so famous, I don't know who they are.
I have no idea who they are. They must be. And so fame in that, I mean, I'm really liking this Shia, whoever he is, that we're desperate for fame. I mean, I think the sort of, one of the things we were thinking about is the theme for this, although I think the theme for the title for this episode is icon and idol. I'm not sure. We're going to have to come up with a title for it. But one of the things we were thinking of was audience of one. Ye's phrase about how, he's making his art for God, and how people respond to it is not relevant to his making the art that he's making. I mean, that we've been looking at more at the icons and the problem of the fan art, and maybe that's it. Fan art is the title. But the desire for fame is this, people will recognize me. And then you get so famous, you're on the red carpet, but nobody recognizes you. In fact, fame isn't, I see we have in chats, Ferris Bluer Bear, sorry so crass, Bloody Milo in the morning. Well, okay. And again, Ferris Bluer Bear, I'm a reluctant artist facilitator, have lost any reverence for either, especially statement and analysis. I get the pitch rehearsal on repeat. Oh, that's actually something very interesting to think about, the way in which people describe why they're doing what they're doing. The sort of, here's my art and I want you to therefore make me famous. Right? Is that if Ferris Bluer Bear, if you're still there, is that the part of the problem? That we want to make our art, we want to make the pitch to make ourselves idols that other people draw images of. Or I actually had this moment in the seminars the other. They were so nice to me here. They were so gracious and here, Professor Rachel Fulton Brown. I'm like, who's that? I mean, seriously, it's my own public image. I have a hard time keeping attached to my own face, as it were. And I'm like, well, no, I'm just here to have fun and talk about art. What are you talking about? Who's this famous person you keep mentioning? I hope no, that's for real. It's hard for me to keep character when they need me as the people who have this international congress to behave as the person they invited, and I want to be there as a fellow member of the conversation and talking about how we do it. And then in the papers they're talking about other artists, right? John Ashbery. We had a really nice absolutely excellent paper on a John Ashbery poem, which maybe we'll talk about. Had a stranger in it, which made me then think about our poems, and then made me think about, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if one day in a seminar people were talking about Dragon Common Room's poems. And then I'm there, right? You're in the, I want to be on the red carpet, but even when I'm on the red carpet, I don't believe I'm on the red carpet. And would people recognize me as, it's so, it's like that sort of reflection of who it, once you've made the art, it's not yours anymore. It goes out into the world and has effects on people. Your intention in making the art, which is what Ye is worried about. It's like, I'm making it for God. I'm making it out of love of God and joy and beauty and truth. But then if you make it and send it out into the world, even if it's all of 5 people watching your live stream, it's already affecting people. For example, poor Ferris Bluer Bear had to be bloody Milo'd in the morning. That... Yeah, we're not innocent. There's innocence, and then there's desire for attention, and then there's I think we go, he will not divide us. What do we have next? Trump, but not Trump, because it's a series of posters, or is that photoshopped onto a wall? I can't tell. Of Trump.
Oh, where he's going.
Yeah, making, and it looks, but I've never seen Trump in a lotus pose, so I don't believe that could be his body, right? So some people so famous that you're always going to be recognizing them, but then other people transform your image.
Yes. Yeah. Well, sorry, I'm still croaky.
I'm trying to leave. This is our meta episode, right? I'm reflecting on our reflection and realizing I really need to let Kilt speak. But when she pauses and I'm like, does she want me to keep speaking? Does she want me to go on? I don't know. I'll sit here and be quiet.
No, keep going. I was really trying to calm down again. But look, this is what a good artist is going to do, as opposed to just like being a kind of a monopoly game for fame. They become part of your life. Like a song that you listen to at a particular moment in your life is going to become a part of your life, like yours. Or a painting, or a piece of clothing that someone has made for you, or a movie that you saw. I became really aware of how important this was a little while ago. That it wasn't the sense of things that I had previously where I thought, most people are running around just to get the recognition for whatever they're doing. I started to think about what everything would have been like without particular songs in the moments that I was recalling. And the world looks different. It sounds different. So that it's like sonically everything's changed when musicians are no longer making their music, then the world just doesn't sound the same anymore. It affects everything. So it's like if human experience is this multi-sensorial installation art that we're all participating in together, we all have an opportunity to do this for each other. That's what I like to focus on. Someone getting on a red carpet or not is irrelevant. They've woven themselves into the grand mosaic of every individual's story here. So like Monkey Jesus Lady, for example, she started out just wanting to do good, but she got famous because of that horrendous mistake of hers, which was not a mistake, really. It was just bad training. And then she ended up doing another...
She did it again,
Yeah,
I think.
another-
She did another one.
Well, she did. She had a gallery like showing
Oh,
where
okay.
people came to have a look at her work afterwards, and then they started putting her image on all of these other things.
I'm going to
But
go back to the catacomb scribbles of Christ now.
yeah, it's like they've become part of the greatest story. So it's like, all right, if that can happen with badly restored iconography, then it's happening all the time with everything we're doing. So yeah, instead of it just being like, oh, we're going to make this because we want recognition and fame, it's like, why am I making this? I'm making this to weave this into somebody else's story. It's interactive.
Right. So going back to, you were talking about the musicians, they make the music and it becomes parts of our lives, which is then, of course, the good reason, and also so our tension between the occult and the revelatory. The good reason for making the art and the music and the poetry and the pictures and the live streams is to, and then was saying, fill in that blank there. I mean, we do it, I think, and you're saying, so what I'm showing now is this famous graffiti. It's so-and-so worships his God, right? And it's I can't remember the translation.
Alexa.
Yeah. It's a donkey on a cross. And understood to be, in effect, the earliest representation of Jesus crucified, which is a donkey. We make art, we do. So I'd say the audience of one is important because is God going to be affected by our art? We do make things and put them into the world in the hope that they affect people. So we're not completely innocent of that. I think it's hard to say if we, but then we're called to make. Right? We're called to be fruitful and multiply. Make babies. We're called to till the garden. Right. That came up yesterday in the seminar. It's like, what's culture? And culture is only outside of the fall. It's only a fallen world that has art. And it's like, no, Adam was sent and put into the garden to care for it and tend for it. And it's a garden. It's already cultivated. There's already art in Eden. So, I mean, God's calling us to be in interaction with the world. And you could almost say it's even worse not to make art. It's worse to refuse the invitation to make, even as badly as Monkey Jesus or Donkey Jesus. So that's one level. But then the art that is out there, the songs that inspire us, and I rather like Shakira's song in Zootopia. It's very, whatever, the one about you fall down and make mistakes and you're going to get up again. And I love it when she sings it with the tigers in the finale. And I may have shared that with people who were less appreciative of it than I am. Because girly nonsense. I play that song to encourage myself. And you say, so she made this beautiful song that encourages me. That's a gift to the world. Ye has made his missions and his gospel music, and it's a gift to the world. And so Ferris Bueller Bear is worrying about whether, when people are making art, they're vehicles for money laundering or an actual vision screaming out of the artist's skull. And yeah, that we hate the money laundering version of it and the fame and the distortion of it, because all art should be fan art out of love. And fan art, I think that is the title of this episode, because it's art for the fans, right? You are making it to give, put beauty and joy and reflection and, challenge probably into other people's lives. So you have to be aware of your audience. Your fans are your audience. So you have to be aware of your audience, that you're making something that is going to touch and affect them, even if it's, and beware. I think that's why obviously people don't like when artists that they've loved to do something ugly, because it hurts them.
Yeah, it does. there's a loss of ideal. I have to think about that a little bit.
Well, we've taken the donkey Jesus off. Now we have skull with gemstones.
Wow.
We were also in the seminar. We're going to just reflect on the seminar. We were also talking about evil, and as we say, the problem of evil is why does evil exist, and particularly in an Augustinian universe creation where evil doesn't exist. It's a deprivation of the good. And ugliness, it's like the ugly is this problem of absence of beauty. I think I threw Vox's argument about why atheism is wrong into the mix, and I think it was Vox's. Now I'm trying to credit him if it was his, where the speaker was concerned about how do you deal with the children's suffering, particularly like torture of children, abuse of children. In a good, if God is good, why are children suffering? Why are children being hurt? And the argument I said, well, okay, I think I can answer that. That you're upset, therefore you're crying out for justice. Therefore you believe in justice. Therefore you do believe in God, because you're outraged because you have a sense of justice. And if you had no sense of justice, then that would be worse, right? Your own outrage is a proof of the existence of the standard that you think people should be judged by.
Yeah.
And beauty seems to work similarly. It's like so this is interesting. Is this skull with gemstones and golden spiky halo ray beautiful or not? It's a skull with gemstones.
Do you like it?
Goth
Do you
skull.
like it?
Goth
What do you
skull. So I grew up enough Protestant that I still see relics with a bit of confusion, I think, and I'm of course enough of Caroline Bynum's student to have read The Resurrection of the Body, and therefore know that the point of relics is that they will rise. They're not dead, and none of, and it's like this is like your skull is the opposite of our living face, because it's the flesh gone. And that thing that we're so precious.
Selfie.
It's a what?
It's a crypt selfie.
It's a crypt selfie. Well, but it's the truth selfie. Looking at my it's like I got this nice skin and I've got this nice flesh and I've got this. Our beauty as when we're alive seems to depend on having a face on the skull, and we don't tend to think of skulls as beautiful because they should be occult. They should be hidden. And here the skull of the saint. I think these skeletons are in Bavaria, and they were taken from the catacombs, right? So we go from, I think this graffiti is in the catacombs, and now I'm not sure. It's somewhere in Rome. It's like, so we're taken from Rome. The skeletons are taken from Rome to the north during the Counter-Reformation, for churches that wanted to, basically up their holiness to have bodies of the saints, and therefore they're full skeletons for the most part. This one looks like a skull on a cushion, but in some of the other ones of the same region, they're full skeletons, all clothed in gemstones, and it's a really interesting sort of test. As you see, this is the relic I was thinking of when you're saying the relics are shining at you, showing you that they belong in heaven, and that's the immediate reason why they're covered in the gemstones, because the heavenly Jerusalem is a city of gemstones. When we are resurrected and we hope with mercy, become citizens of heaven, will be clothed in glorified bodies. And these gemstones as creatures from paradise, right? The rivers from paradise are understood to flow with gemstones. And actually in India, they find gemstones in the rivers coming from the mountains. So gem-filled rivers that are from paradise, which then is a reflection of the heavenly Jerusalem. And these relics clothed in the gemstones are therefore visual representations of the beauty we have as souls and in our glorified bodies as the resurrected after our judgment. So talk about revelation. We've gone from Milo in the bloody bath to and okay. So I realized there's an open parentheses there that the people are worried about. That is, you've taken on this false baptism, this reverse baptism in blood. Our true baptism was baptism into Christ's death, as Paul says, which is pretty bloody to begin with. So the right reading of the imagery is as difficult with this relic. Is it gory and gruesome and something that you put on your porch for Halloween, or is it gory and gruesome and something you put on your porch for Halloween? There was one house in our neighborhood that had a full Day of the Dead ornaments. It's looked very in fact Mexican or South American, where it's decorating the skulls of your loved ones as. And again, you could look at this, and indeed the Protestants do look at these ornamented relics and say, idolatry.
Yes.
I mean, strictly speaking, ancestor worship, I suppose, but they're not your direct ancestors because they're the saints who may have died virgin and therefore without children. But they are, this kind of recognition of the dead. Why is that? Is that idolatrous? Is it what the Romans did? In fact, what the Romans did, they kept death masks of their ancestors. The patricians did in their homes. Reverence for the famous, but these people, we're not really sure who these saints were. I think they do have attributions, but that bones taken from the catacombs always have a little complication, whether or not. And in the Carolingian period, when they're looting lots of them from Rome, they have miracle stories to go along with them to verify that they're saints.
Okay. So they're authorized.
They're authorized
saint relics.
Talk about Shia LaBeouf going from place to place and being discovered, right, by 4chan. And so the saints being taken from one place to another.
Oh, yeah.
Can they manifest themselves by miracles to say, it's me?
Yep. Well, that's kind of the ultimate installation art, isn't it? I mean, we're taking a saint that we expect to be resurrected and carrying their body and decorating it like this, knowing that at any moment they could just pop up back alive again. It's quite, it's quite funny. This is not a macabre thing. It's funny.
Well, it's supposed to be joyous, right? Yeah. Okay, it's funny.
Yeah,
keep going.
you're holding someone who is not dead. They're sleeping. In that view, in that Christian view, and sort of living around them, as though they've just overslept. With it's kind of like again removing the veil and being on the border. It's like being on the border of life and death at the same time, because you're living around this person that you expect to just pop up at any moment, or the final judgment when the Lord returns. So
it could be at any moment.
Again,
yeah. So yeah,
and it could be at any moment. He comes as a thief. So there's this. That's a very strange behavior, which is this border mentality behavior of okay, well, we're not dividing the living and the dead anymore. There's no distinction. We're going to live with them because they're not dead and we're not alive because we're dead in Christ. It's a very trippy way of thinking about it. It's quite humorous. Decorating them for this. You imagine you die as a poor saint and then you just wake up covered in all. you guys do when I was asleep? It's like when people get drunk at parties and they wake up with Sharpie like written across their face. It's very similar. There's a lot of joy in it. There is a lot of joy in that.
Yeah, now I'm forever after going to have that image of the saints waking up. What did you do?
What you do to me?
The last thing I remember, I was having my head chopped off.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny though? You died in Rome, you wake up in Bavaria, surrounded by German speakers, and you're like, where am I? Why do I have things stuck to my skin? Yeah, would be very strange. Christians are weird.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think I am more and more convinced of my premise at the beginning was true. Christian, Christian poetics is poetics, because what else are you trying to do? So the famous classical ars poetria is Horace, and he has I should know this off the top of my head because I have this tapestry that has it woven into it at home, but the poet should make it seem as if the thing is in front of you, that you can see it, and that sort of mimesis, that the idea that art is about representation of reality. That we favor. Well, it's curious because we favor in Western art now, quote, realistic art, except for that's not what people make. That's what I think Ferris Bluer-Bear is worrying about, that this modern art that we don't look at it as art. Although, okay, so again, at this conference they had a lovely little exhibit entitled The Throne of Wisdom. So I was all over it because it was like beautiful Marian images, but also some more contemporary stuff that doesn't have the delicacy of execution that the 17th century images did. It is, that's the fan art too. I mean, it looks, sort of at the level of, it looks like our Gay and Kim drawings of sketching, but with love. And then you're like, do I like this or not? Well, no, I actually prefer that medieval image. But some people look at the medieval images and say, well, that, looks like cartoon art. And then we're in the horrible, terrible aesthetic realm of is beauty in the eye of the beholder. Christian art always being about this making in subcreation with the creator, which is the way Tolkien thought about it, and I think we should keep emphasizing this childlike desire to reflect the joy that we have in God's creatures. So, realistic painting is definitely trying to do that. You're drawing nature very accurately.
Yes. You're studying the great creation. It's like I'm just wondering if this is in a way that people are meditating on the character of God when they're creating these kinds of things. Yeah. I don't know why it is that the aesthetics or the artistic trend now is to have everything real, even though when they're promoting reality, it's got nothing human in it. It looks very mechanized. I don't know if this is making any sense, but someone sent a picture to me on Telegram, and it was like a portrait of this really old Indian woman who, I mean, she looked like 120 years old. She completely wrinkled leather face and everything, and just weathered, like a really weathered face. And I really liked it because you could see the mileage, the time mileage in her expression. You know, it wasn't this cosmetically enhanced face. You know, like I'm gonna rail on Madonna again, but you know, there were no lip fillers, there was no Botox. This woman's face was like 120 years of hard life in an Indian village, and she still looked human. There wasn't some vital element of the human character taken out of her. It's like this with the kind of modern representation, people that are doing portraiture and everything. They're capturing the faces, but it's almost like people have forgotten how to capture the human character when they're doing these kinds of portraits. Like, there's some kind of missing depth perception in the way people are doing things now. I have someone in mind, but I'm not going to mention their name. But they're a very renowned artist who does portraits. And I don't like them. Even though technically the artwork is very good. The faces aren't telling a story. There's no story.
Well, okay, so fan art, I mean, we're working around the theme of fan art, and it's with love and this desire to be in the presence. And I mean, maybe beauty in the eye is in the eye of the beholder, in the sense of when we behold with love, there's beauty. And when we make art that is, you know, an expression of that love, other people will see that. I mean, I think thinking now back to so Cheryl had said Milo's bath is not much different than the skull. So I think, so we were talking about it as performance. Both of them were somehow performance. I mean, the relics are a performance of a liturgy. They're a dynamic presence. You're praying with the saints. Yeah. They're there in your church because you're praying with the saints, and they are alive in the Lord. Ferris Bluebear is saying, human skeletal decor going to make a huge comeback. Trend colors next season all revolve around bleached bones, which is interesting. Well, but so I've changed the bones, but we're still looking at an ornamented skull. And I was thinking about his comment while you were saying people don't look alive. I mean, this skull looks more alive than some portraits.
Yes, that's what I mean. The skull's more animated than a lot of portraits. Like even selfies, you know, you see this kind of, it's the same expression reproduced over and over and over again in different women's faces, or you know, men, but not so much men. Well, that's kind of changing now too. But there is no, that's what it is. There seems to be this missing vitality in the expressions that people are depicting in their images.
Well, here I am making faces at the camera now. And I thought about that. It's like that you know, you can end up making the same. You get your selfie face and you do that one every single time. Versus the meta level here is that when I do covers for these videos and I'm trying to capture different moments in the conversation, and I'm sort of allowing us to have mobile faces even in our stills in those screen captures. I mean, being on video is an interesting problem because then you see the range of. It's like when you pose for your mirror, you can make it static, and look, I like this one. I'll hold this one. Whereas if you're on camera, you have to get used to seeing you from all these different angles and the movement and the different expressions that you didn't realize you were making. The live streaming and the videos and the selfies and the cameras and the mirrors we're all, as I was talking about, you know, the degree to which I'm aware of myself when I'm in a moment as the person that other people are needing me to play the performance. Yes. And, you know, I'm holding my face. I'm doing nothing but making Calvin faces right now, which you're not looking at. You know, I like that series of episodes in Calvin and Hobbes when he just can't hold his face for the camera, and he's always, he's like, that's our kid, because he cannot make a portrait face. He keeps making comic faces. The need to make a silly face. You were sending me some. I should have put them in the slideshow before I got us set up. And he's like, I'm making faces for the camera, and I'll put them out as stills. I'm like, cool. I'll put them up. Let's see. What do we have now? Of a skull. Oh, we have an angel with a sword. Yeah. Okay. So we've done it. We've gotten around. It's like devotion, art, beauty, joy, representation, angel with sword, which is this is one of the Ethiopian images. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's very common if you get Bibles in Ethiopia, that the kids will have been drawing in the Bible, and they will represent this particular image, which is angelic, with the eyes that have that particular shape. That's a very Coptic thing, to have the eyes in that shape, which I do sometimes with my eye makeup.
You want to look like an angel. We get it.
Yeah. 'Cause that's the shape. But yeah, you'll see like these ballpoint pens where the kids have just grabbed whatever they can. They'll be scribbling in the Bibles, but they're doing their fan art version of the marginalia and or the iconography or whatever it is. So, and it's usually something very simple like that. But the idea is that these particular pictures are focusing on the eyes. They usually have very small mouths and very large eyes, because the effect is that the angel or the person that's being depicted, they're not talking, but their eyes are open, waiting for the input of the illumination. So it's a revelatory experience looking at it, because it's reminding us to open our eyes and not say much.
I'm forgetting which pictures I have next. Oh, we have Botticelli. So we look at this is that we come around to the problem of the beauty and the aesthetics, and you say, okay, this is in Renaissance terms a beautiful woman. Is this? I mean, it's one of Botticelli's, but I don't recognize the picture.
I just picked it randomly.
Okay, so it looks like it's not Spring or Venus or anything like that. Maybe it's a portrait.
No.
Yeah, so it's and in a portrait like that, as we were just talking, is like these are basically the version of selfie you got when you were rich in Florence in the 15th century. That you got a painter to render you beautifully, and who knows whether they're lifelike. I mean, we always think of them as lifelike, but they're stylized and they're Botoxed and they're airbrushed. Yeah, that these Renaissance portraits are typically, it's pretty much as quote fake as Kim, whom we started with, in her makeup. Covered with pearls and a very interesting cameo, which is probably significant. The Florentine women are, of course, criticized by Savonarola for dressing up too much and putting too much of their and they would in this kind of thing, they're showing off their wealth both in their fabrics and in their jewels. And that the Florentine women, one of the texts I read in Eurociv is Alessandra Strozzi's letters to her son Filippo, who is she's looking for a wife for him, and she's always sort of scoping out the Florentine spinsters, I suppose, the young women, and whether or not they come with good dowries, and their dowries often came in the form of clothes and jewels, and these are meant to support the families that they're marrying into. So Strozzi is very concerned with making sure Filippo makes a good marriage so that the family gets the money. It's the Romeo and Juliet set, I'm saying. For whether the families are able to work together. But it's interesting that this I can't. So you sent me a range of pictures, and I see Ferris Bluerbear talking about the banana taped. We had a banana picture in the options, but I didn't put it in. That this Botticelli will be taken as the icon of beauty now, right? That although he's painting pagan images too, but that we think of. I mean, most people have asked to think, well, what's a beautiful painting? You're going to point to something Renaissance.
Yes. Why?
Judgy art historians. Why? Because I mean, we've talked through so many different kinds of the photographs, the performance art, the kids art, the fan art, the efforts at restoration, and then we default back to. I mean, E. Michael Jones would talk about the way in which in the Renaissance they fuse the sort of geometry with the logos with the representation and representational. But the thing is, I'm not quite with Mike on representational art being primarily the most beautiful. I think something like a stained glass window, which are not representational, is amazingly beautiful and it has geometry, or the Pantocrator that we were looking at and the mosaic. But I'm not going to end up at beauty is in the eye of the beholder in the way that means anything could be beautiful. I think most of the money laundering art that Ferris Bluerbeer is upset about is purposefully ugly. I think it's ugly and therefore works as money laundering art because it's like it's thumbing your nose it's thumbing your nose at those who want beauty. And saying, ha, 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 we can make this famous and people will pay a lot of money for it and it's ugly. I think that's part of the money laundering dynamic, is that maybe actual beauty won't be sold like that. Maybe it's protected. I don't know. Is it protected? So going back to the gemstones in the churches. The churches are often criticized for having all of that ornament and gold and gems and things like that. And the Benedictines that I love will defend it as appropriate to our praise of God. It's like maybe I think our next image is the creation. That it's worth having Michelangelo paint your ceilings because you are. Oh no, and this is actually good. This is a good sort of coming to closure on our meditation, because the talk I gave yesterday was on pictures for teaching, and the sort of problem with Christian art, the degree to which is it didactic, or is it iconographic, is it devotional, or is it primarily pedagogical? What are we doing with all these images at all? When back to the makeup problem, we are supposed to be the icon. The liturgy is the icon. The host is the icon. Ferris Bluerbeer, what is a logos icon for today? Aha, indeed, we're trying to figure it out. The elitist club mockery, ugly art. Yes, I think so. I think it becomes it gets uglier and uglier the more it's a mockery of the desire for engagement with your audience. I think when you were thinking back to the problem that
I just had the thought. Sorry, keep going.
No, keep going.
Beauty pageant.
Okay, go.
No, that horrible
Yes.
fat man that won the beauty pageant.
It's mockery of the desire for young women's beauty.
Yeah.
Mockery of the icon in female form that God made. Now I lost my train of thought.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. We're reflecting.
It popped into my mind.
The reflecting and bouncing and stuff is going really beautifully today. But it's interesting, and the usual problem with Christian art is usually in that, one of our friends used to show us a Dürer that apparently disturbed Dostoevsky, right? If you painted the dead Christ so accurately, what are you showing? That pictures, the pictures or the art can be disturbing, disrupting, grabbing the audience by the throat. All crucifixes are supposed to a certain extent remind you of the horror of the rupture, that the temple veil was torn at the crucifixion. So there's no more occult and revelation. It's like the temple veil is gone. There's no more veiling. It's all exposed at the crucifixion. And yet we want our churches to be beautiful, not ugly. And yet we put images of horror in them to remind ourselves of that rupture.
Horror and beauty at the same time.
Yeah. And then the problem of going, it's what I think, one last picture. Ooh, it's Dante's vision of heaven as depicted by Dore. That we don't want to end up worshiping the images. And so it's like, if this episode is, as I've now christened it gazillion times, fan art. So we are representing the glory. We are trying to participate in the glory. When we're drawing our beloved celebrities, artists, better with their artists who have given, and that's what Ye calls himself, an artist, right? You've drawn yourself. You want to draw the beloved image and participate in. You want to sing the song. You want to, and again, back to Ye's, it's a mission, not a show. He wants you listening to that music and it becoming part of your liturgy in a good way.
Yep.
Why do we as Christians, you say, we worry about worshiping the art over God, making the image an idol, making the celebrity, the artist into a celebrity famous that we don't recognize anymore because we're so busy projecting the fame on the red carpet. It's very interesting that we have, all of this is, it's like you're saying, we have trouble with the way we respond to each other. When we're drawn to each other, we have trouble with what we do as artists, to the degree to which we're making with God or against God. The trouble with what we do when we're in the presence of the art, and yet we're drawn constantly to make it because we love the creation. I premise, right? And that's in the Christian poetics. I think that's the answer. It's the yes to God's making, that we are saying yes to being creatures, and we will celebrate that we are, I like that we'll celebrate that we are creatures. We will celebrate that we are creatures and not want to be the creator, not want to overthrow God and be our own makers, but that we are joyful that he made us and we are responding as his, I'm going to weep up now, that we are responding as his children, making our fan art for God.
Yeah.
Quite weepy now.
That was very beautifully said.
Well, there you go. Have you guys figured out where I am?
Make art. Just make art. Just do it.
Go make art. Make fan art for God. Yeah. Make fan art for God.
Yeah.
You guys know where I am yet? So
she's in the closet.
I'm in the closet. This is my loft, my lofty sunlit place, and it's noon 13 now. I get to go to the place where the sun danced tomorrow and pray with Our Lady. So pray for me, pray for Kilts, pray for our celebrities who we turn into idols, and make bloody with our clinging, I suppose, but also recognize when we're imitating out of love. It's a challenge.
I can't add anything to that.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us at this odd time, at this mosaic time for our journey through the images and the art and the fan and the joy. I'll see you next time. I don't know whether to say good night or good morning. Good night. Bye.
Good every time.
Good every time. Good being in the stream. Bye.